What's up, everyone? Beast Mode back here with another video. So today I want to discuss how do we beat frogs. So this is coming from a zombie perspective, of course. That's pretty much the main deck that I play. But a lot of these um, situations and scenarios, as well as thoughts, can be applied to some of the other decks of the format. So what makes frogs so good? And I think I've discussed this in other videos, is the fact that it's unfair because every turn you can get an instant +1 without doing any work essentially. So in Edison format, the power cards of the format, aside from oppression and trap dust shoot, but heavy storm, mirror force, torrential, um, of a timed Gemini spark, a deck devastation virus. Some of those cards right there are so good because of the fact that they are not one for ones all the time. And if you play the cards properly, you can get the +1, +2 maybe if with the mirror force, depending on if your opponent's playing into it or not. The reason why Raikou, Caius, Hamster so good because of the fact that it's just easy pluses, right? You flip a Hamster, get a Raikou, flip the Raikou, kill a back row or a monster, boom, sacrifice for Caius. So the format is really +1, -1, of course. Of course, there's combos involved and you can get OTK'd out of nowhere even though you have 8 more cards than your opponent. But generally, the more cards you have over your opponent, the more likely you are to win. So with that being said, frogs and Blackwing, because Blackwing has Whirlwind, but frogs are able to every turn get back a Treeborn Frog and tribute for a Monarch and get a +1 without any thought. So me playing zombies, I have to grind out a Goblin Zombie search with a Caius to get a +1 there. I have to maybe set a Pyramid Turtle, wait for the turtle to get attacked, search the Goblin Zombie, then sack for a Caius. So it's a lot of work for me to generate those +1s. I enjoy playing the deck that way. That's why I've been pretty successful with zombies, is because of the way I play the deck. I do not play it in an aggressive manner, and I kind of just play control and try to generate advantage that way. But I'm a fool for doing that because there are just other decks that can do what I'm trying to do much better with less work. But again, I'm not a huge frog fan. I don't really play the deck. But this deck here, at its core, is literally +1 every turn, right? You can summon the frog. That's a +1 once it's in the graveyard. Monarch for free, +1. Junk Synchron's essentially a +1. Swap Frog will bounce any of these cards back to the hand. I think this is Spiral's list too, so this is Hero Frogs. And on top of it, they have the Miracle Fusion, which is one of the best spell cards in the game. So this deck has a lot of unfair cards, and just the mechanics of it are pretty unfair, just +1 every turn. So how do we beat that? Well, it's not easy. If you're playing a deck like Blackwings, which is also unfair because it's the only deck that you can generate a +1 every turn without thinking. If you have Whirlwind, potential +2, excuse me. If you have 2 Whirlwind, play Whirlwind, summon Shura +1. Well, after the first one, it replaces itself, but any turn after that, it's a +1. So that deck can go toe-to-toe with this because of the fact that it's just playing a bunch of cards that require not much thought to generate this advantage every turn. And again, I'm not saying the decks take no skill. I'm just breaking it down to the core. So please don't attack me in the comments. Now, another thing that's great about frogs is that game 1, they pretty much have the advantage all the time. There are a few decks that maybe have a decent matchup, and again, I'm thinking off the top of my head, so please, comment other decks that might be better. But fairies are decent, I would say, if they can herald certain monarchs. But even then, they require a lot of recruiters, and if they can stick a couple monarchs, you're already behind. So probably fairies aren't even the best case scenario. I would think more the Machina deck. They do play the Raikou Hamster engine, which this deck feasts on. If you're going to sit there and play a set of monster every turn, this deck is just going to eat you alive. But the key is that the Machina deck has the 2500 Fortress, which is a problem for this deck because they can't target it. And it's bigger than all the Monarchs. So that's one advantage that the Machina deck has. Zombies have a tough time game 1 just because of the fact that if you're playing the recruiter build with a bunch of recruiters and kind of not the hero build like I play, your opponent needs to attack those cards for you to start rolling, or you have to summon them and attack into monarchs, and it's hard for you to essentially get the diva play on board, which requires you to have a monster on board, either a goblin, zombie, some type of recruiter, and then summon the diva. The frog deck does a really good job of keeping you at no cards on board. It just bounces everything you have. So that quick draw, same thing. Quick draw is just so slow that this deck can sit there and just keep bouncing Raikous and Hamsters and Caius, and of course, Quick Draw is one of those decks that if it goes long enough that they can crawl back in and get enough advantage with Pot of Avarice. But if they can just get you locked locked up with the Swap Frog Rise of Bounce or Swap Frog Caius, which I've seen quite a few times, that the deck can literally just auto lock you. You know, if you have one monster and they just keep bouncing it to the top of your deck. So what I'm trying to say is any deck that's really setting a bunch of cards, Bayou Turbo, another deck. If you're setting Raikos, you're setting Hamsters, this deck will feast on you. And that's 90% of the decks that are running around in Edison format. So it's taken me a while as a zombie player, and there's a lot of thought that zombies are good because they have the Book of Life and they can hit the Treeborn Frog, and you know that stops the deck. This here, any frog player will tell you. I'm sure Frazier would tell you he's a great frog player. The deck does not need this to play at all. It's almost a joke if you think that your DD Crow is going to stop this deck from doing what it wants to do because you DD Crowed a Treeborn Frog. They don't even side deck Burial anymore because they don't care. Now, I'm not saying it doesn't work at all. I'm saying that DD Crow has to happen at the right time, early in the game specifically, to really have an impact. If you draw DD Crow late and they've already slammed down 3 Monarchs, it's not going to matter. It doesn't do anything. And they play a Battle Fader here. They can discard water from the hand, special swap. They have other means of attributing. They can Miracle Fusion and they contribute over an absolute 0. So this here does not stop the deck enough. It's not like you can side deck in Royal Oppression against zombies and completely shut down the deck. Like that card just beats zombies. Or Light Imprisoning Mirror just beats fairies, or Christia Sworn. Like those cards really just hurt. Or Consecrated Light. They just stops Blackwings, right? So DD Crow just does not stop this deck. So what I'm trying to say is that even the side deck cards we have for the deck do not completely shut it down because they have answers. Master Restrict I have seen seems to be probably the best card if you can get it to stay on the board. But as you can see, their whole side deck is literally to counter the cards you're putting in. So they're not side decking for any bad matchups because they don't have one. So their goal is to stop you from sticking the Master Restrict, the Zombie World, all that. So now this build here doesn't play the enemy controllers, but there are like the Diva Hero, the Junk Hero, they play enemy controllers. That's why Master Restrict's really good. Stops the Subsitoad, stops the enemy controller, stops the Monarch. So I think it's probably one of the ideal cards, but now they're bringing in triple Dust Tornado, Regeki Break. They main deck a Regeki Break, so it's not even guaranteed that it's going to stick. But I do think it's a little bit better than DD Crow. Excuse me, I gotta cough real quick. I find that Master Restrict's pretty good. Pulling the Rug is also another great side deck card. If you can Pulling the Rug a Monarch at the right time, you will win. Typically, if they only have 1 or 2. But the problem is, too, they know that you're going to be putting in Pulling the Rug, so they put in triple Vanity Fiend and make those Pulling the Rugs dead. So the deck is very resilient. It's hard to side deck against, and there's not a specific card that really stops it. So how do we beat it? I played as zombies. This is Soul's build that won RBET. I believe he beat Rognok, which was playing like a burn frog build. It's not your general stuff. It's not a general like generic hero frog or diva frog. It was very teched out with burn stuff. So take that for what it's worth. Here, he did not have any real cards in the sideboard for frogs and got very lucky that he dodged most of them. Which has been the case for me for many of the tournaments I've topped. I pretty much never played frogs aside from the 3v3 tournament, which I have a replay for that we'll go through really quick. But this build here did not have anything in the sideboard for frogs. You could say maybe the Compulse, which I do side deck in against the hero frogs because it can hit absolute 0 pretty easily, but nothing here. But what made Soul's deck good enough against frogs is the DD Crow. And now I know I just said that DD Crow does not stop the deck, but if there's going to be a deck that should have DD Crow in the sideboard, at least, if not in the main board, it's zombies. And the reason why is this here, if you have 2 DD Crow in the main deck, 2 Book of Life, and let's say you sided a 3rd DD Crow, you have that much more of a chance to see a card that will banish a Treeborn Frog early in the game. And on top of it, they also have Book of Life here and the DD Crow. So they have more options so they can hit some of the hero monsters from the graveyard, which makes Miracle Fusions dead, as well as some of the junk targets. Or you can chain DD Crow to junk. So you can hit more of the deck because you already main deck some of these cards. So that's my point. If you're playing Bayou Turbo and you're just side decking in 2 DD Crow, I don't feel it's good enough where you have Soul here playing double Book of Life, which hits the frog or hits a hero, and double DD Crow, and a potential to side deck a 3rd. So again, will this stuff shut down the deck? Probably not. but I feel like it's a little bit better here. So I do think that zombies main decking DD Crow probably have a better answer than most decks now to frogs. Also, the reason why zombies can somewhat hang with frogs is the potential for OTK. So again, I've always said that I don't like to try to set up OTK lines because of gores, because of this, because of that. You have to be very decisive when you're going to be OTKing. You have to select the right time to do it. When you play against frogs, all that it's thrown out the window. You just try, if you have a shot to win the game, you should probably just do it, because the longer the game goes on, the less likely you are to win. So I'm very surprised he was successful as he was. I think I've talked with him or I've seen his post that he just dodged frogs, but if he had a couple more pulling the rugs in here, it's probably all he would need. One of the mistakes I was making was overside decking for the matchup, because I felt that it was just so hard. For me, I was having such a difficult time with it because it just kept bouncing pyramid turtles on top of the deck and mystic tomatoes. So I would side deck in like 9 cards. And what was happening was my deck became so trash because I have all fossil dynas in my hand and pulling the rugs and this, that, and the other. I had so many cards that I was, skill drain. I was trying to stop the deck with that they still beat me, because now my deck doesn't do what it needs to do. So I think overside decking is one problem that people make. That's number one. Number two, I think that they have this idea that DD Crow is going to completely shut down the deck, and they side deck 2 or 3 of them, and they think that's enough. It does help, but don't be surprised if you lose the game because you DD Crow their Treeborn Frog, and then next turn they just summon swap and put another one in the graveyard. Again, I do think zombies are better with the DD Crows in the main deck with the double Book of Life, because you can hit more stuff and you have access to a first turn Book of Life or Treeborn, a Book of Life or DD Crow that can hit like a turn 1 Treeborn and set them back another turn. So in terms of play style, what I find is when I'm playing against frogs, that if I don't have a way of really capitalizing on the board, I will commit little to nothing on the board, because I don't want them to monarch my monsters away. I don't want to deal with that. I'm okay with just letting them summon swap frog and hit me for 1,000 every turn until I can deal with something or draw something that can deal with the board. Or I'm very selective with the cards I put on the board to make them drop monarchs. So, after a while I have 6 cards in my hand, I'm going to set a bottomless, because it's a matter of time. They can't help themselves. They have to start dropping these monarchs because their hand gets full too, because they keep bouncing swap frog back to the hand. So best case scenario is they summon Treeborn from the graveyard, and then they summon Ryza, and you hit them with a bottomless. And next turn you hope to draw another card that you can really establish the board. So you have to be very selective what you're putting on the board, because if you just keep setting a pyramid turtle and then they Ryzer it, next turn you draw, set it again, they Caius it, you're not getting anywhere. And you're just now you have 2 monarchs you have to deal with. So, and they often don't want to drop them unless they're going to get some value. But at a certain point, when they have too many cards in hand, they don't really have a choice. And then if they set spell or trap, they lock their Treeborn out. So, what I'm saying is, if you are able to really be selective with what you're playing and try not to commit anything to the board that is not chainable to a monarch. Okay. So that's kind of how I've been playing with zombies. I've also been very much focused on trying to OTK when I play against a deck. I keep Dark Arm a lot rather than alluring it away early. If I draw it early and there's no darks in the graveyard, I would often just allure it away, because of the fact that I'm like, well, I'm never going to get a dark in the graveyard. They're just going to rise or remove it. I've changed my thought, and now I say I'm going to try my best to get Dark Arm on the board because I can win with it. So I'm going to go through this replay really quick. Let's point out and see some things I did. Maybe, maybe I didn't do anything in this game, but this was my 3v3 match, round 1. So let's just see here. Let's see what we got good here. So hand is okay. So I actually draw Dark Arm turn 1. I don't know what my opponent's on. So the reason why I actually set Solemn here, I normally wouldn't, but because I draw Spirit Reaper, my goal is if they summon something at all, Stratos, anything like that, I could just Solemn and hope to flip Spirit Reaper next turn and rip a card out of their hand. Or if they set nothing but a back row, I could also flip Spirit Reaper and attack. So that's the reason why I set Solemn there, because my goal often is to try to gain advantage, and I love Spirit Reaper because it's +1 every turn. So that's what I'm doing here. Again, I don't know what they're playing. I draw MST here, so we're not doing anything. We're passing, of course. Excuse me. We draw Allure. Notice how we don't play it. There's no reason to play it right now. We don't even know what we're playing against, so how can you you can't even make a real decision of what you want to get rid of. We understand Dark Arm is dead right now, but Dark Arm is a powerhouse, so we don't really just want to get rid of it if we don't have to. Now, if we're staring down 2 Blackwing cards here, let's say a Boar and a Soroka or something, then yeah, we obviously need to make a decision here. We're gonna have to start alluring and drawing cards. But right now, there's no need to do that. So now we see a Ryza, so we know what we're playing. I can make the argument to solemn this here. I don't believe I do. Excuse me. I don't believe I do. There's really no reason to, I feel. We have Tragodia, so why bother? And now we also have Allure Food that I'm okay getting rid of, because Spirit Reaper doesn't do anything in this matchup. It just sits there and gets bounced. So we can just pitch it away if we need to here. I do think we Allure. Yes, we do. So I actually get rid of the Zombie Master here. I think this card's probably even worse than the Spirit Reaper in this matchup here, because A, you have to get a zombie in the graveyard first off to make this card even relevant. If you don't have anything, it's useless, completely useless. It doesn't survive a Monarch attack. It can't run over anything. It can't get over a dupe. So without a zombie in the graveyard, this card is really, really trash. So I probably value the Spirit Reaper a little bit more than that. We don't MST here because 90% of the back row in this deck is chainable. And we want to try to lock out the Treeborn, which we do. So I'm surprised my opponent doesn't actually threatening roar this and just bring back the Frog, but I kind of understand. Actually, I don't really understand, because if they threatening roar, bring back the Treeborn enemy controller and take my Tragodia, I'm in like almost dead. So I have to like solemn that. So we do set another one here. So this is actually very good for us now, because A, we were able to keep a Tragodia on the board, and B, now we have established another monster. So now zombies can play from a favorable position, because we're not just setting Turtle, getting it bounced, or Caius, setting a Tomato. We're actually able to get a few monsters on the board, which is what we need to make a big push with Diva. Our opponent's just not drawing all that well either. So we're not overly committing here. We're kind of playing slow, seeing what they do. We have a Solemn. So I don't Solemn this either. It's just a 1-for-1 trade here. Tragodia has done its job. I feel like this card's going to return back to their hand. So right now, they did not threatening roar when I attacked over the Monarch, so I'm not sure exactly what this back row is. So I'm going to go for it with Spirit Reaper here. That's my goal. Try to see if I can drop a card, and now they chain. So right here, I probably should Solemn, because I know they have Spirit Reaper. And I mean, sorry, the what's this thing called? Dark Dust Spirit. And they have an option to sacrifice over it and then destroy my whole board. But that will put me at 3 darks. So I think I elect to just hold the Solemn here. Yes, I do. So I hold the Solemn, which is, you can make the argument not to do that. My goal again this game was I'm going to win with Dark Arm, and now I have a Solemn to back it up. So, and I have a Book of Life also to hit the Treeborn here. So we hit the Treeborn. We're going to go Book of Life. We're going to try to hit a card out of the hand. Again, we're trying to generate as much advantage here. We're trying to try to play the unfair game, okay? I could have Book of Life back Pyramid Turtle and still hit the Treeborn Frog, but I want to rip a card out of their hand, so here we go. They Battle Fader. We're not going to give them anything to keep on the board here, because they don't have another Monarch, another Frog for the Monarch, so we set everything because we have Solemn. Dust Tornado is complete trash against Frogs, so that card has to get sideboard out. They try to enemy control here. So if they had if they had heavied first, I would have had a Solemn, which would have put me at like, what, 1700. But they don't do that. They actually play enemy first, which is surprising to me. And of course, I'm not going to Solemn that to protect a MST that's useless in this matchup. So we just Dark Arm everything we can. They drew another Treeborn. And if we had Solemn, if they had heavied first and we would have Solemned, maybe, maybe not. It's hard to say. I could have just booked my guy in my Spirit Reaper. We probably would have died here if we don't hit the Gores, but they drop Gores anyway. And we set 2. So we're in a pretty good position. Look how we had a goal in mind, turn 1. Dark Arm is winning us this game right now. It typically doesn't happen that way, but now we don't really have the protection we need. Of course, we don't have the Solemn, but this card here is hitting nothing that's of no value. Like Dust Tornado, if they hit that, that's great. Lucky for us, they do. So at this point here, we are going all out. They have to draw a Monarch to even beat us. They draw a Substitute, and you can see I have Brain Control, so it's game. Actually, I think I go into the wrong synchro here, which should have been Bronic. It didn't matter. I was just synchroing and killing it. Yeah, I say it in chat. So game 1, we draw Dark Arm turn 1. We had an option to allure it away, and we don't. because we see a riser that comes down, and we are now saying I'm going to try to win with Dark Arm because of how powerful it is, A, and B, because our main goal is to try to OTK to beat frogs. We have to try to be able to push through damage and hope they don't have the Battle Fader or hope they don't have the Gores, because me sitting back and playing the control game does not work. Not against this deck. They do it better than I do with no work. So we actually draw a really good hand. I actually side decking Compulse as well and pulling the rug. So probably just going to set the Goblin here. There's no reason to really attack anything in the deck. If it's a Treeborn Frog, it's a Treeborn Frog, but most of the time it's a dupe. So we're in a good position again because now we were able to stick 2 to the board here. Let's see. So we do draw a lure this time. Let's see what we pitch. We get rid of Gale. Again, keeping Dark Arm. I very rarely do I ever keep Dark Arm when it'll lure this early with no darks in the graveyard. But again, I'm going to try to win with this card. We obviously get our best play in the deck, which is, aside from Dark Arm, is Tribute for a Goblin Zombie and drop a Caius. That's our best play. We search Plague here because of the fact that I can use this to make a Dark End. Oftentimes we'll go Goblin Zombie into Goblin Zombie, but I don't want another card that I really can't do anything with, because Goblin Zombie is one of those cards that your opponent really has to attack to really make it worthwhile. Unless you contribute over it like I did. So I want the more aggressive play here that gives me more options later in the game. So that's stuck. So this card here, again, I'm confused as to what it is. It didn't seem to be a threatening roar. So we got lucky with a pulling the rug. So see how good this card can be if it's into a Monarch. It can be very, very good. But again, a lot of these players are side decking into Vanity's Fiend to make those dead. So at this point, they set a new back row. I'm not committing anything to it. They do play Mirror Force, so they side deck it in. So you have to be very careful with that. They get very tricky sometimes. So we're not even going to flip this Mystic Tomato. I don't want to give them any idea of what it is. I don't want them to have any idea. And I'm not going to play any Mirror Force. So there's no need to flip that over. We're just going to attack. They set 2, we can match. So we do draw a Diva here. I think we're just going to attack. Probably can set Sangan or something. We don't choose to set anymore here. Could set Sangan. Probably would have been the right play. They do Threatening Roar at this point. So when I'm playing my opponent at this point, I feel very confident that I'm going to win the game. I have a DD Crow to hit any Treeborn that hits the graveyard, or a Miracle Fusion. I have a Compulse. I have Dark Arm ready. So they let me sit back too long in this game. They weren't able. Now, as you can see from this match, they weren't dropping Monarch after Monarch. This was the most ideal situation for me playing this match here. Like, I was never really under Monarch pressure at all. But there can be games where it's Monarch after Monarch, and there's not much you can do about that. So let's see here. So there's an option for me to like try to go for game, but again, they probably have some type of, oh, they don't actually. They have all bluffs. See how, this is why I don't like the Hero Frog build. I just feel that it's not as good as the Diva build, because these cards are dead and there's no need for it. Like, they don't need to play heroes. The deck does what it needs to do without all that. You're just adding, I know you add another sense of explosion to the deck, but it just makes it more inconsistent in my opinion. So when I see that they're setting DD Crows, I know I'm winning the game. So they're dusting. That's another Compulse I set here. Looks like they're going to try a Miracle Fusion play. So I have an option here to just either Compulse or Mirror Force this away. I choose to, I don't know what I choose. Nothing. I let it go. Just drawing more cards here. I'm hoping that they attack this new one, either of them really, and then I can try to make a play. So they Caius a back row. Hit the Mirror Force, which is pretty good. So they tributed over the 0, destroy both monsters, and hit a back row. But that puts me at 3 darks again. So here's when Dark Arm's going to make its grand appearance from turn 1. So they leave the game, but their hand's dead. There's nothing they can do here. And I'm going to hit both back row and win. So Dark Arm doesn't really win me the game here. I could have won like 6 different ways. Zombie Master actually was able to put in some work if I wanted it to. So I don't know if this game or match exactly showcases what I was trying to do, but there are frog matches where I will literally commit 1 card to the board a turn, and only commit cards that I'm ready to lose to Monarchs. I think that the goal should be Dark Arm is extremely important in this matchup because of how explosive it can be. It can also deal with Battle Faders that are dropped on the attack, Gores, Tragodia. So I think Dark Arm should not be allured away, which I typically do. And then we'll go back to the deck. DD Crow, I don't know if I showcased it in that match, but DD Crow and Zombies feels much better than typically. I think Soul is onto something here when he main decked 2 of them. I had one main deck before the RBET that I was just unable to play in it. I think that's kind of where we should be right now. But this goes, if Hero Beat becomes really popular, this card's really not as good. You can hit the Alias, but it just doesn't feel as good. I know it does stop Miracle Fusions at times, but it's not the best card to be doing that with. But anyway, I hope some of these tips help you play against the Frog matchup. It is a really good deck, and it's not going anywhere. So Edison War League starting up in 2 weeks, and if you want to make a team, join the Beast Mode Discord server now, or today, or whenever, but we'll be starting up in the next couple weeks. If you haven't already, please like, comment, and subscribe. We're trying to push 1,000 subs, and I'll see you all in the next one.